event is coming soon.
The 40-day season of sacrifice, March 19th or 22nd to May 1st, manipulating the collective consciousness of humanity using mass black magic rituals. By Edward Morgan. I wrote the following article last year in an effort to let others know about how the powers that should not be planned their chaos sorcery, distorting events to suit a secret agenda. Days after it was published, the Brussels attacks took place, on March 22, 2016, precisely within the window described and on an important occult date. What will this year's season have in store? Time will tell. What we can do now is educate ourselves and help spread this information far and wide so that the people are not deceived by these events when they happen. By Justin Deschamps. Our world is awash with subtle influences, indoctrination, intimidation, coercion, and deception, all designed to make us feel disempowered so that we become willing pawns for a global elite. As many know, false flag attacks have become all too frequent in modern times. The targets of these attacks are the minds of the people by way of elaborate rituals, theater and illusion, for the purpose of deceiving the population into accepting a false version of reality. Once this has been accomplished, an individual will become a willing participant in the matrix of control. For all intents and purposes, the people have had a spell cast on them. They have become the victims of black magic, which is always an attempt to compel an individual to act as an agent of the magician, usually without their conscious consent. But the good news is, with knowledge comes power, and with discernment comes immunity to manipulation. The following is meant to empower the individual with knowledge so as to avoid being deceived or manipulated. In all likelihood, there will be a false flag attack committed against the people in the coming days and weeks. Take the time now to prepare by gaining knowledge, which will blossom into wisdom with experience. What is the season of sacrifice? The season of sacrifice is a 40-day period between March 19th and May 1st. Its name was coined by the dark occultists of this world, otherwise known as the Cabal, Illuminati or NWO, who believe that the earth must be bathed in the blood of innocents to ensure a fruitful harvest and to invoke an archetype of the destructive forces of the universe. Historically speaking, there are a great number of battles, wars, false flag attacks and tragic events that have occurred during this 40-day season of the year. And in most cases, the people were used as pawns in these manufactured events to further the agenda of a despotic sycophantic elite. As a demonstration of this, consider that governments have already admitted to committing over 42 false flag attacks in the past century. Related 42 government-admitted false flag attacks. The season of sacrifice is intimately connected to astrotheology and its modern-day constituent astrology, known as celestial mechanics. Although the notion of astrology has been ridiculed for decades within mainstream circles, behind closed doors the elite not only recognize these influences but incorporate them in developing their agenda for world domination and power. Related to science that validates astrology, solar cycles, electrochemical conductivity, water memory, music and vibrational effects on DNA and more. Mark Passio is a former Satanist priest and insider who began blowing the whistle about his experiences several years ago. Since that time, he has amassed a breathtaking amount of information related to the occult, which he regularly presents in weekly podcasts as well as conferences. As Passio states, despite the fact that the term occult has become synonymous with evil, the word simply means hidden. The following is a presentation of the occult basis behind the season of sacrifice, as presented by Mark Passio in podcast number 149, as well as some historical evidence suggesting that these things are actively taking place in our world. This is crucial information to understand for those seeking to gain freedom from a seemingly never-ending onslaught of social programming and indoctrination. The masses have been used as pawns due to their pandemic ignorance. Knowledge and understanding are the best tools to inoculate ourselves against manipulation. And once done, we can spread the truth far and wide so as to ensure others are also not deceived. 12 signs or houses of the zodiac. The season of sacrifice is based on the 12 signs of the zodiac. The zodiac is a time measurement system used by ancient cultures as a method of tracking the movement of celestial bodies over a course of time with our planet as a center point. As the Earth moves around the Sun, the position of planets and our star changes in the sky, and this can be tracked using the zodiacal system. This system can be used for small time periods, like a single year, or much larger spans of time, like a great cycle or year, approximately 26,000 years. In either case, the constellation behind the Sun as it rises determines which house of the zodiac or sign the Earth is under or in. For example, on March 19th or 20th, the Sun will rise in the constellation of Aries the Ram. Anyone born under this sign would be associated with the constellation Aries, until April 17th when the Sun rises in the house of Taurus. In other words, each day of the year has a zodiacal constellation associated to it, which the ancients, and the Kabbalah, believe have a profound influence on an individual's life, as well as the planet at large. Here is an image of the 12 signs of the zodiac plotted over a one-year cycle. In this image are two crosses at 45 degrees angles with each other, marking the 4 seasons and their midpoints, which have occult significance. Image source, podcast number 149. The season of sacrifice begins when the sign of Pisces transitions to Aries, at approximately the same time as the spring equinox on March 21st. May 1st is the midpoint of the sign of Taurus, marking the end of this sacrificial period with the pagan holiday of Walpurgis Nacht. Seasons marked by vertical and horizontal lines. The zodiac also marks the seasons of the year by using vertical and horizontal lines, corresponding to the height of the sign in the sky as it moves throughout the year. The term equinox literally means equal night. The angle that the Sun has with respect to the Earth's equator during the equinoxes is 0 degrees. These 2 points on the zodiac are on either side of a horizontal line. These are the 2 times of the year when day and night are equal, falling on the seasonal transitions of spring and fall. Image source, podcast number 149, horizontal line representing the 0-degree angle the Sun makes with the Earth's equator during the equinoxes. When the Sun reaches the highest or lowest point in the sky, it known as the seasons of winter or summer, marked on the zodiac by either end of a vertical line. The lowest position of the Sun, from a northerly perspective represented by the lowest point in the zodiac, is between Sagittarius and Capricorn. The highest position of the Sun is represented by the highest point in the zodiac, between Gemini and Cancer. Image source, podcast number 149, vertical line. Representing the maximum and minimum angles that the Sun makes with the Earth's equator during the solstices. On a standard globe used in geography, one can find the lines marked the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. These represent the maximum southern and northern points of the Sun as it moves in the sky throughout the year. When the Sun reaches the angle of 23.5 superscript ON with respect to the equator, the summer solstice begins, entering the sign of Cancer. When the Sun reaches the angle of 23.5 superscript OS with respect to the equator, the winter solstice begins, entering the house of Capricorn. The year can be further broken down into the season of life, marked by the Sun's emergence from the southern hemisphere on the spring equinox, and the season of death, marked by the Sun's recession into the southern hemisphere on the fall equinox. Within these 2 seasons, the archetypal story of the zodiac is told as an allegorical tale of the symbolic creatures associated with each of the 12 signs. The progression of the zodiac is a symbol representing the evolution of consciousness, for an individual and the planet at large. The minor and grand crosses of the zodiac. The minor zodiacal cross is 4 quadrants of the zodiac marked by the beginning of the 4 seasons, forming 4 cross sections. March 21st, spring. June 21st, summer. September 21st, autumn, and December 21st, winter. The grand, or galactic, cross is 4 quadrants of the zodiac marked by the midpoints of the seasons. These times were each marked by sabbats or the time for performing sacred rites. May 1st, Walpurgis Nacht, representing fertility, the emergence of life, and an offering of sacrifice of some kind to ensure a bountiful harvest. August 1st, Lammas, representing a time of gratitude, pre-harvest thankfulness, and a celebration of bounty and life. October 31st, Samhain, representing a time of reflection and self-respect, honoring the dead, contemplation of impermanence and death, and a time of preparation for winter, and February 2nd, Candlemas, representing prediction, a time of looking forward, planning for the future, making resolutions, and the time when the darkest and coldest period of the winter is about to end. By combining the minor crosspoint of March 19th with the grand crosspoint of May 1st, a 40-day period is outlined, defining a window of time known as the season of sacrifice. The sun's movement in the sky produces seasonal changes and resulting effects on life. These cycles were highly revered and studied by the ancients, which placed great importance on harmonizing human life with them. In modern times, society has lost touch with these allegorical systems of death and rebirth that represent the evolution of consciousness in the universe, but the elite most assuredly know of these things, and use them to their advantage. Masonic Tracing Board and the Zodiac. The Zodiac and Masonic Tracing Board are intimately connected. Both are symbolic expressions of the sun's movement and transformation as it progresses throughout the year. The Masonic Tracing Board, despite the negative connotations associated with Freemasonry, can be positively interpreted to represent the evolution of consciousness. Related analyzing Masonic Tracing Boards, the Masonic Levels of Consciousness True Gnosis. Passio also produced an extensive presentation discussing the evolution of consciousness as depicted in Light Occultism. See the below-linked article for more. Related Why you need to understand the occult, Demystifying the Occult Seminar, The Nature of Sacred Symbolism and Hidden Knowledge by Mark Passio. In the following image, the Zodiac and First Degree Masonic Tracing Board are compared revealing symbolic correspondences. Image source, podcast number 149. Notice that if one rotates the First Degree Masonic Tracing Board, bottom left 90 degrees to the right, each of the three pillars corresponds to the sun's position in the sky over the course of the year. If one places the rotated tracing board next to the zodiac, the sun's intensity is represented in both images with the topmost position as the peak, and the point of least intensity at the bottom. The top pillar is depicted by the sun, representing the longest day of the year, on June 21st. The middle pillar is depicted as the Eye of Horus, representing the days of the equinoxes, balance or harmony, on March 21st and September 21st. The bottom pillar is depicted by the moon surrounded by stars, representing the longest night of the year, on December 21st. Both the zodiac and the Masonic Tracing Board represent the principle of rhythm or cycle, one of the 7 Hermetic natural laws. In mathematics, one can plot the intensity of the sun as a sine wave if the year begins on an equinox, or a cosine if the year begins on a solstice. In the following image, the season of life is represented by the curve above the x-axis and the season of death is represented by the curve below the x-axis. Notice how the solstices are at the maximum and minimum points of the sine wave, summer is at the peak of the wave and winter is at the base of the wave. The sun rises from the grave. March 22nd is a day of special importance because it marks the 3rd day after the sun begins its rise out of the southern hemisphere on March 19th. It is symbolic of resurrection from death, which is an astrotheological theme of a great many world religions reaching back into antiquity. In Christianity, for example, Jesus is said to have died on the cross, and rose from the grave after 3 days, described as, the risen Christ, the light of the world, the Savior of the world, bringing the life of spring to places ravaged by the death of winter. When the sun crosses the equator on or around March 19th it is said to be rising from the grave, or out of its tomb in the southern hemisphere. The 3rd day after this process begins, the resurrection is complete, marked by the 22nd of March. The number 22 also symbolizes rebirth in Kabbalistic tradition. To further underscore the three-day resurrection allegory, the 12 houses of the zodiac can also be considered 12 great days of the calendar year. When the sun dies on the cross, on December 21st, it spends 3 days in the tomb of death, 3 months after the winter solstice. The sunrise on 22nd of March is the first day after 3 great days of the zodiacal calendar, symbolically depicting the time when the Christ rises from the tomb of death or the season of death. March 22nd and the season of sacrifice. The exact day for the beginning of the season of sacrifice is contested amongst occult researchers. Some contend that since the sun begins its rise on the 19th of March that this is the beginning of the season, whereas others assert that since the resurrection requires 3 days, then it must begin on March 22nd. Using this latter interpretation, if one adds the 9 remaining days in March to the 30 days of April and adds the first day of May, a 40-day period is defined, another number of great occult significance. The 40-day cycle is symbolic of spiritual transformation, manifestation and initiation into higher consciousness. See this article here for an extensive listing of references relating to this span of time. Despite the fact that the appellation Lucifer has become synonymous with evil, the earliest meaning of this word was positive. If the Creator is everywhere, in all things and beings equally, then the being who represents the Creator to the creatures in creation, would be a bearer of light, hence the term Lucifer, which etymologically means lux equals light and fer equals bearing or to bear. Therefore, the one who brings light is considered the positive Lucifer and the one that brings darkness is the negative Lucifer. Dark occultists worship the latter, as they seek to promote suffering, chaos, and slavery by fostering ignorance and humanity. The ideal of the dark occultist is symbolically represented as darkness, hence the symbol of the black sun. Image source, symbol of the Order of the Black Sun. Many occult societies throughout history have used this symbol to refer to dark occultism. Here is one from the Thule Society during the reign of Nazi Germany. Image source. Related the Black Sun and the Luminous Lodge. The Vril Society, the Luminous Lodge and the Realization of the Great Work. Within dark occult circles, this 40-day period is a time of special significance because it is when the dark Lucifer archetype rises from the grave, so long as the correct rites are invoked. The belief is that any dark magical working or ritual must be initiated during this season so that the agenda of the dark occultists, the servants of dark Lucifer, will become manifest later in the year. The dark sun, or the black sun, is the symbolic representation of the forces that oppose creation. If Jesus represents the light of the world, or a positive depiction of Lucifer, then Satan represents the darkness of the world, or the negative depiction of Lucifer. The dark occultists believe that in order for darkness to be made manifest in the world, they must give sacrifice so that the negative archetype of Lucifer becomes active on the earthly planes. This explains why so many false flag attacks and manufactured events occur during this 40-day period. The Order of Death or the Skull and Bones Society can also be linked to March 22nd, representative of the dark sun. The number 322 is used in their symbol of the skull and bones. Their symbol represents the dark occult consciousness of intellect and action divorced from compassion. This is symbolically represented by the skull, intellect, and thigh bones, action, with the heart missing from the depiction. Image source, symbol of the Skull and Bones Society. Using knowledge as a weapon or tool to enslave and oppress others is what is depicted in the above symbol. The secret police of Nazi Germany, Hitler's SS, also used this symbol, further underscoring the notion that carrying out the plans of darkness makes one an acolyte of the Black Sun or negative Lucifer, making one an agent or pawn of darkness. The coffin symbolizes rebirth. The symbolism of the coffin represents the death of the former self and the rebirth of the enlightened self. Image source, podcast number 149. Analyzing the above image, within light occultism, Hiram Abiff is known as the Masonic Christ. The coffin above represents an initiation, in Hiram Abiff's case, of an initiate's state of material consciousness or death. The initiate is required to transcend darkness or selfishness, represented by the skull and bones, in order to be reborn as an agent of light. They must rise out of the grave of death to be reborn into Christ consciousness. When this takes place, the selfish separate self dies and the universal self or risen Christ consciousness becomes active. Within dark occultism, the coffin symbolizes an initiation into separation consciousness, thereby becoming an agent of darkness. Instead of seeking to purge selfishness, dark occultists seek to further entrench egocentric thought patterns, described as psychopathy in psychology. The goal in this case is to sacrifice compassion, one's heart, or care to be reborn as a skull and bones man, someone who is so selfish they can easily be manipulated via egoism. Traditionally, in various pagan rites, March 22nd was the time of sacrifice to spill the blood of animals or humans so as to ensure a bountiful harvest, which always occurred the beginning of the 6-month season of life. These sacrifices were made in honor of the sun and earth. But even these are distortions of the original theme of personal transformation and evolution, wherein one was seeking to purge selfishness and ignorance so as to be reborn with evolved consciousness. The dark occultists are the focus here, as it is they who have essentially taken over the world. In times of old, their dark season of sacrifice was conducted openly with public displays of human or animal slaughter, and the spilling of blood. Today, these rites are held in secret, yet a public form of sacrifice has emerged, the false flag attack. False flag attacks are modern-day black magic. False flag attacks, psyops or psychological warfare operations are now the modern-day equivalent of mass black magic rituals and sacrificial rites. Dark occultists initiate the masses into a state of consciousness so that they willingly participate in realizing the nefarious goals of the cabal. In general, black magic is always founded on some level of deception. Ritual is used to draw in the attention of an observer or a victim, who is led to believe in one thing or another that supports the dark occultist's plans. The belief is ultimately a deception and the ritual is a ceremonial tool to make the false version of reality seem more acceptable. Probably the best example of a mass black magic ritual was the false flag attacks of September 11, 2001. This ritual occurred during the season of harvest, close to autumn, suggesting that the rite was the culmination of a magical working that began in the season of sacrifice, although no overt ritual was observed during that time. The people were initiated into a false belief that 19 hijackers took over 5 commercial airplanes and aimed them at targets in the U.S. And with this false belief firmly entrenched in the minds of the people as initiates of darkness, they called for a war on terror that rages across the planet to this day. This is a clear example of how the people became pawns for the cabal. To be clear, the primary goal of black magical workings is not specifically to harm the people, in and of itself. It is to coerce them into becoming agents of darkness. Any harm, trauma or chaos created in a ritual is for the primary purpose of manipulating the mind into accepting a false version of reality, a deception or fraud. By accepting a deception at its face value, an individual becomes an initiate of darkness and an agent of the cabal. Once someone has fallen for the deception, all manner of plans can be made manifest, including depopulation, fear-mongering and pandemic harmful actions committed by the people against themselves. When the war on terror was called for, shortly after the attacks of September 11, each and every person who silently agreed became an agent of darkness, which was the primary goal of the false flag attack or mass black magic ritual.
Please like us and share with your social media. Please subscribe and click the bell to be notified of our new videos.
Remember to check out our playlist for important intel you may have missed.
Be sure to enter our subscriber appreciation $100 monthly giveaway. The link is in our description.
And visit our sister channel. Event is coming soon. For additional intel and information, stay tuned. Victory of the Light.